That day, all of Spain froze in horror and anxious anticipation. February 8, 2014, Palma de Mallorca, under the blinding flashes of cameras, the roar of microphones, the shouting of protesters and journalists from all corners of the country, Princess Cristina, daughter of King Juan Carlos and Queen Sofia, sister to the reigning monarch, entered the courthouse as a defendant. Not as a witness or a victim, but as a possible accomplice to a crime, a royal on trial. This had never happened in Spain before. Her face revealed no fear and shame, only exhaustion. She wore a simple dark coat, her hair pulled tightly back, no jewelry and makeup. Everything about her seemed to scream, "I am not a princess, I'm just a woman." But the public didn't buy it. The crowd outside believed in betrayal, and that finally justice had caught up with those who were always above the law. She was accused of tax fraud and money laundering. According to the court, she may have used her company Aizun to conceal millions of dollars in illicit income generated by her husband. That husband, Iñaki Urdangarin, once a celebrated Olympic athlete and national favorite, had been under investigation for years. Authorities suspected he had stolen millions of euros meant for public welfare and sports programs. And now it seemed she was involved too. From the moment it was revealed that Princess Cristina would face formal charges, it was as if a bomb had gone off in Spain. TV shows were interrupted to cover the breaking news. People debated around kitchen tables and in office hallways. Did she know? In bars, they raised glasses not to the crown, but to the prosecutor. The royal family, desperate to save its reputation, distanced itself completely. No more official events, appearances, and mention of her name. She was erased. She moved to Geneva with children, a quiet exile, far from the fury and disgust brewing at home. The judge in charge of the case spoke clearly and firmly. The princess may have personally benefited through silent cooperation in her husband's criminal scheme. The evidence demands investigation. He didn't flinch. It didn't matter whose daughter sat before him. The press quickly gave the scandal a name: the fall of the princess. Headlines screamed the shame of the Bourbons, Cristina, from palace to disgrace, and no one is untouchable anymore. Indeed, it felt as though the Spanish monarchy was on the verge of collapse. King Juan Carlos, already unpopular after a scandalous elephant hunting trip, looked tired and cornered. His son, Felipe, remained silent, and among the people the rage was building. The country was in crisis, jobs were vanishing, homes were lost, pensions slashed, and now a princess allegedly spending public money on fine dining, dance lessons, and designer furniture. It was unforgivable, but things were not so simple. Cristina stayed quiet. Then she spoke. She knew nothing. She trusted her husband. He handled the finances. Her lawyers fought to have the charges dropped. Even the public prosecutor at one point admitted that the evidence was weak. But an anti-corruption group, Manos Limpias or Clean Hands, stepped in and pushed the case forward. And so began one of the darkest chapters in the history of the Spanish royal family. What followed was a storm of scandal, disgrace, and irreversible decisions. King Felipe would do the unthinkable, strip his sister of her duchess title. However, she would still legally remain an infanta, a princess by birth. And as for Cristina, she kept insisting on her innocence, claiming she had simply loved and trusted the wrong man. But was that really the truth? Soon we will uncover how a royal princess found herself at the edge of ruin, what secrets her husband tried to hide, what verdict the court delivered, and most importantly, did she stay true to herself, or was she simply caught red-handed with a crown on her head and dirty hands? She wasn't just born into a family, she was born into a legend. Cristina de Borbón y Grecia came into the world on June 13, 1965, in the heart of Madrid at the sanatorium of Nuestra Señora de Loreto. In this place, women from Spain's most respected lineages gave birth to children who would go on to shape history. Just days after her birth, she was baptized in the royal chapel of the Zarzuela Palace, and the Archbishop of Madrid blessed the infant, whom the entire country would soon refer to with pride and reverence, the Infanta. Cristina's godparents were as distinguished as her own parents: Prince Alfonso, Duke of Anjou, and Infanta Maria Cristina, the king's own aunt. Everything about her birth, her name, and her lineage seemed to whisper one undeniable truth. This girl was meant to be extraordinary. Cristina grew up in the palace gardens, played on marble staircases, and learned to hold her posture under the watchful eyes of governesses and photographers. And of course, she dined on the most exquisite cuisine prepared by the royal family's personal chefs. By the way, if you're curious about what today's European royals eat, you might enjoy a new release, the book Elegant Main Dishes. It features fascinating chapters about royal dining traditions across Europe, along with nearly 100 recipes inspired by kings and queens, but adapted and simplified for everyday home cooks. Click the link below this video to get your copy now. The cookbook is available on Amazon. From early on, Cristina knew royal blood ran through her veins, and expectations for her would be no less than for the future king. In photos from those years, she's always seen beside her younger brother, Felipe, the boy who would one day become king. She smiles, holding his hand as if trying to protect him. She wasn't just a princess, she was someone whose fate had taken a different turn and might have become the very face of the nation. She never disappointed. Cristina studied at the prestigious Santa Maria del Camino school, then went on to earn a degree in political science from the Complutense University of Madrid. But she didn't stop there. She moved to New York, enrolled at New York University, and completed a master's degree in international relations. Then came Paris, a post at the UNESCO headquarters, diplomatic receptions, international conferences, and meetings with world leaders. Cristina spoke 5 languages: Spanish, English, French, Catalan, and Greek, and could hold her own in any conversation just like a true representative of the crown. In 2001, she was appointed a UN Goodwill Ambassador, representing Spain at the Second World Assembly on Aging, where she spoke with dignity and pride. She was intelligent, determined, and composed, and unlike many royals from other nations, she never tried to turn her title into a spectacle. Cristina served, she worked, she represented her country, and it seemed that in her the Bourbon dynasty had found not just a princess but a pillar of strength and pride. But, as often happens in the lives of princesses, everything changed when the man of her life came into her life. When the time came for the princess to marry, all of Spain held its breath. On October 4, 1997, the Cathedral of Barcelona became the stage for a royal fairy tale. On that day, Infanta Cristina, daughter of the king and queen, said yes to the man she had fallen in love with all her heart. Her chosen one was Iñaki Urdangarin, a star of Spain's national handball team and an Olympic medalist from the Atlanta Games. He was handsome, athletic, and charismatic, a national hero admired across the country. They had met only a year before the wedding, and their romance moved at lightning speed. People said that never before had Spain seen such a light in the Infanta's eyes. On the day of the wedding, Cristina was radiant. She wore a gown by Lorenzo Capril, a refined and elegant piece, crafted from silk woven by hand in Valencia. The dress featured a simple silhouette, a defined waist, and a majestic 3-meter train embroidered with a delicate silver thread. It didn't shimmer with rhinestones or shout of wealth. Instead, it quietly declared, "I am a princess, but I am humble. I am royal, but I am a woman." Particular attention was drawn to her exquisite veil, draped over her head, a 19th century family heirloom. But the crowning piece of the entire ensemble was the Spanish floral tiara, a true masterpiece of royal jewelry. Created in 1879 by a British jeweler at the request of the Spanish king, the tiara had lived through exile, was once sold, and eventually returned to royal hands by Francisco Franco, who gifted it to Princess Sofia, Cristina's mother, on her wedding day to Juan Carlos. Since then, the tiara had grazed the heads of Queen Sofia, Queen Letizia, and Infanta Elena, and now it was Cristina's turn. The bride sparkled not only with diamonds, but with pure, sincere happiness. The wedding was more than a celebration, it was a statement. The royal family was alive, modern, and open to the world. Crowds gathered outside the cathedral, the ceremony was broadcast across the country, and flowers filled the streets, orchestras played, and fireworks lit the sky. And at the center of it all stood Cristina and Iñaki before the altar. That day, the king granted his daughter the title of Duchess of Palma de Mallorca for life. It was a mark of special distinction. A city, an island, and its traditions now became part of her very name. Their family life began with joy. Over the next 8 years, Cristina gave birth to 4 children: Juan Valentin, Pablo Nicolas, Miguel, and Irene. All were born at the exclusive Technon clinic in Barcelona. The family lived between Spain and Washington, D.C., where Iñaki worked for Telefónica. They seemed like the perfect couple, she a princess and mother, he a successful professional and national role model in photos, smiles, strolls, official events. But within that picture, as it would later become clear, there was a crack, and the fairy tale ended suddenly. At first, it seemed like a rumor, a tabloid fabrication, but soon all of Spain understood it was real. In November 2011, the name of Iñaki Urdangarin, husband of Infanta Cristina, appeared in the headlines not as a sports hero, but as a central figure in a corruption scandal. He was accused of using his non-profit foundation, the Nous Institute, to funnel public money into his own accounts. According to investigators, Iñaki had signed agreements with various regional governments, especially those of the Balearic Islands and Valencia. He promised to organize international conferences, sporting events, and public promotion projects. The contracts were worth millions, nearly 5.8 million euros. However, it was later revealed that some of these events either never occurred or were significantly overcharged. The newspaper El País published a budget breakdown for one such event, and the nation was stunned. Meals, transportation, consulting fees, everything was inflated, exaggerated, or completely fabricated. Spain's Anti-Corruption Bureau searched the offices of the Nous Institute and uncovered evidence that large sums of money had been transferred to offshore accounts in Belize and the United Kingdom. This was no longer just suspicious, it was serious. The royal family stayed silent. When asked for a comment, a palace spokesperson said, "The royal household does not comment on judicial matters." But the next day, after the public prosecutor announced an appeal regarding Cristina's involvement in the case, the tone shifted. The palace added, "We express absolute confidence in the legal authorities." Meanwhile, public outrage grew. How could a man married to a princess use his position to steal from the country? Then came something no one expected. King Juan Carlos himself made a televised Christmas address, and in it he said, "Justice is the same for everyone." Many saw this as a direct message. There would be no exceptions, not even for the king's own family. In February 2012, Iñaki appeared before Judge José Castro for the first time. The investigation was in full swing. He was one of 15 people under investigation, including the former premier of the Balearic Islands. He returned later that month to face additional questioning. His name was removed from the official royal website, and he was barred from attending any more royal events. The monarchy was trying to distance itself, but the investigation didn't stop there. In the spring of 2013, the judge formally announced that Infanta Cristina was now a suspect, not just as a wife, not just as a bystander, but as a possible accomplice. Authorities believed that she might have known about her husband's schemes and that their jointly owned company, Aizun, was used for money laundering and tax evasion. That summer, to escape the growing storm, Cristina moved to Geneva with their children. But in January 2014, a Spanish judge officially charged her with tax fraud and money laundering, ordering her to appear in court. On February 8, 2014, Infanta Cristina walked into the Mallorca courtroom. She denied everything. She said she knew nothing about her husband's financial dealings and that he handled all the money. She said she simply trusted him. The investigation continued. Judge José Castro didn't back down. In June 2014, he formalized the charges against Cristina. That November, the High Court of the Balearic Islands ruled that she would stand trial for tax fraud, though the charge of money laundering was dropped. On December 22, 2014, it was announced Cristina, Iñaki, and 15 others would go to trial. The whole country waited. What would the court decide? Would the princess be found guilty? What would happen to the monarchy? And who was truly to blame, Cristina or her love for the wrong man? The trial began on a cold morning, January 11, 2016. 3 judges, a courtroom in Palma de Mallorca, and high-profile names on the bench. At the center of it all stood Infanta Cristina and her husband Iñaki Urdangarin. The charges were brought by the organization Clean Hands, acting on behalf of the people. This wasn't just a legal case, it was a test of the monarchy's credibility. The public demanded to know, would the Bourbons be judged like ordinary citizens? Cristina was calm and restrained in court. She answered only questions from her own lawyers. She stated that she never dealt with their finances and that her husband handled everything. She claimed she didn't know why expenses for furniture, travel, and personal purchases were being charged to a company credit card. She repeated, "I trusted him. I was busy raising our children." The prosecution argued that she must have known, but the evidence was weak, based mostly on assumption. Even the state prosecutor admitted that there was no solid proof. Still, the public wanted justice. The scandal had gone on too long. The silence had lasted too many years. On February 17, 2017, the verdict was delivered. For Cristina, acquittal. She was found not guilty. But for Iñaki, 6 years and 3 months in prison, plus a fine of 512,000 euros. It wasn't what the prosecution had hoped for. They had demanded nearly 20 years. Still, it was a sentence, and it came down heavy. A year later, in June 2018, the Supreme Court reviewed the case. His sentence was slightly reduced to 5 years and 10 months. And on June 18th, Iñaki reported to the Brieva prison, a quiet, secluded facility. From national hero to inmate, the transformation was complete. In 2021, he was granted supervised release. He had to check in at prison only once a week, lived with his mother in Vitoria, and worked for an accounting firm. From the spotlight into the shadows. But even earlier, in 2015, Cristina had suffered a different kind of blow, not from the courts, but from her own family. Her brother, King Felipe VI, stripped her of the title Duchess of Palma de Mallorca. Officially, it was said to be at her request, but many knew the truth. It was a political decision. The king was trying to protect the crown, to distance himself from the scandal. And though Cristina retained her royal title and her place in the line of succession, in the eyes of the public, she was no longer part of the monarchy's shining future. After the trial, Cristina and Iñaki disappeared from the spotlight. No more royal events, no interviews, no cameras, no public life. They had faded into the background as if trying to begin again, and for a time it seemed they had succeeded, that they had paid for their mistakes, that a new life had finally begun. But everything would change again. Cristina was about to face another blow, one she could never have seen coming. After all the trials and scandals, it seemed that a quiet peace had finally settled over Infanta Cristina's life. She had vanished from the front pages, withdrawn from official duties, and stopped making public appearances. Spain, weary of the noise surrounding the royal family, gradually stopped talking about her. The scandal was forgotten, the title lost, but it appeared that, at the very least, her family had survived, despite the public trial, despite her husband's prison sentence and the monarchy's cold silence. Cristina had stayed with Iñaki. She supported him, defended him, chose silence when the world shouted. For many, it became a symbol of her resilience. She could have left. She had every reason to walk away at the height of the scandal, but she stayed, for the children, for the marriage, perhaps even for love. To most observers, the story seemed closed. The worst was behind them. They lived separately but were still legally together. He resided with his mother in Vitoria, working as a consultant. She remained in Switzerland with their children, avoiding the spotlight. From the outside, it looked like an attempt to preserve the shell of the family, even if the bond had long since cracked. But in January 2022, the silence was shattered once more, and this time it cut deep. The Spanish tabloid Lecturas published photographs that spread like wildfire across the country. The images showed Iñaki Urdangarin walking hand in hand with another woman along the southern coast of France. She wasn't his wife, not the Infanta of Spain, but a co-worker from his accounting firm in Hoa Armentia. It wasn't a grainy photo or idle speculation. It was irrefutable and devastatingly public. A quiet affair made louder by the legacy it betrayed. Spain, which still remembered Cristina's loyalty during the darkest years of her life, now watched with renewed scrutiny. Would she speak? Would she fight? A source close to the Infanta told Hola magazine that Cristina already knew. The photographs did not come as a surprise. However, foreknowledge is not a guarantee of protection from pain. Some wounds strike just as deep, even when expected. Just days after the photos made headlines, an official statement was released. Calm and composed, it read, "By mutual agreement, we have decided to interrupt our marriage relationship. Our commitment to our children remains intact. Since this is a private decision, we ask for the utmost respect from all those around us." Signed, Cristina de Bourbon and Iñaki Urdangarin. The language was careful, perhaps even sterile, but behind those lines was a world that had collapsed. They had been married for 24 years. Together, they had experienced a royal wedding, the birth of 4 children, a glamorous life in Washington, a crushing legal battle, prison, exile, and public disgrace. And now he was walking with another woman hand in hand. When asked by reporters about the photographs, Iñaki responded with chilling calm, "Things happen. It's a difficulty we'll handle with the utmost calm and together, as we always have." Together? To the public, it sounded like mockery. Cristina said nothing, no statements, no interviews, no reaction, just silence, the same silence that had become her shield for years. And so the story ended, a fairy tale that had once begun with a princess, a national hero, a dazzling wedding, and a diamond tiara, now concluded with a blurry tabloid photo. Cristina was left without a title, without a husband, and without the shield of royal protection. But she still had her children, her dignity, and perhaps, most importantly, her freedom. Today, Infanta Cristina is 60 years old. Once she was the pride of the Spanish royal family, educated, refined, fluent in several languages, with an international career, a role as a UN Goodwill Ambassador, and the full trust of her father, King Juan Carlos. The entire nation watched her wedding. Her smile graced magazine covers. Her life seemed built from light and promise. But all of that is now in the past. Today, Cristina lives in the shadows. She no longer makes public appearances, gives no interviews, and takes no part in royal life. And most importantly, she will never again represent the monarchy in any official capacity. Since the moment she was called to testify in the Nos case, the decision has been final. Cristina would not return to any institutional role. No appearances, not even on holidays or during times of crisis. No titles, no acknowledgements from the palace. For Zarzuela, the royal household, it's a matter of survival. The image of the monarchy is fragile, and protecting it meant removing Cristina from the public eye completely. A source close to the family summed it up simply: all she wants now is to go unnoticed. And it seems she's succeeding. She lives in Geneva. She leads a quiet, discreet life, visits her children, and occasionally returns to Spain, but always in private, always far from cameras. She has accepted her exile, not with defiance, but with the solemn calm of someone who has nothing left to lose. The story of Infanta Cristina is not just the tale of a fall from grace. It is a reminder that even inside the most glittering palaces, one can be deeply alone, that even being born a princess doesn't guarantee happiness, that even royalty can be betrayed, abandoned, and forgotten. She never broke her vows, never turned on the crown, never sought revenge. She simply stepped away with dignity and for good. What do you think? Should Cristina have been given another chance, or was exile the right decision? Let me know in the comments, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.